thank you very much to the panel and the audience for joining us. I know we're battling against the sunshine for attention at the moment, typically the hottest day of the year. But I think quite an important discussion that we're going to have, and hopefully you guys are going to answer some questions that lots of people are asking at the moment about what the future of work looks like, which I've heard referred to as a number of things, but I quite like what Caroline Theobald said in our opening session in the chat this morning, which was that we've got to stop calling it the new norm, because normal is not exceptional. So let's just start calling it the new future. And I quite like that. I think it's a little bit more optimistic as well. So I think we'll start off just by quickly introducing ourselves, where we're from, what we do, and I think how we're currently operating as well, just to give a little bit of background. So I'll start off. I'm Laura Kemp. I work for Dynamo North East, and I am a cluster engagement manager. I head up the service delivery centre cluster, which over the past 3 months has been attempting to respond to the situation and support service delivery centres and beyond. Actually, through this period, we've looked at resilience, at remote working, at recruiting, and what the future looks like, and I guess that's it does look like. So we'll start off.
Yeah, I think the signal's dropping a bit for me. I don't know if it has for anyone else.
Frozen?
But in terms of an intro, I'm Mark.
Are you with us, Mark?
Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Mark. Yes.
Yes, I can.
Fine.
Maybe
Yeah,
it was
so, hi everyone, Mark Thompson. I'm a director at CGI. I'm from Solihull, but I live in Newcastle in Gosforth, where I have done for the last 10 years because I'm married to Geordie. So I feel like this is my home now. I am responsible for developing our business in and around the North East. We've got a lot of utility clients, a lot of central and local government clients, healthcare clients. But my role tends to be where people are trying to do either customer-centric solutions or service delivery solutions, and looking at how technology can help them. So hello, everybody. You're next to me, Guy.
Would you like to
Shall I go next? Laura, you keep dropping off. So my name's Guy Currey. I'm the director of an organisation called Invest North East England, which is the regional inward investment agency. So we work on behalf of 7 local authorities in the North East LEP area. So that covers County Durham, Northumberland, and then 5 Tyne and Wear authorities. And our sole purpose is to attract new businesses from both the UK and overseas to locate into the North East. So we work on a range of sectors: digital technology, manufacturing, energy, professional business services, life sciences. And currently, it's a small team. There's only 4 of us in the office, but we're all working from home at the moment. And I was telling the panel earlier that my kids are driving me mad, because my wife works in NHS, so I'm looking after 3 school-age kids as well, which isn't straightforward.
Great. Laura and I did plan for this just in case we lost her. So I am her wingman. So Rishi, if we could ask you to introduce yourself. Don't worry, Laura, seamless.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Rishi Kotecha. I work for Sage as we're wearing a couple of hats at the moment, but I oversee kind of infrastructure and operations, predominantly on the IT side, and was involved. You're back, yep, and involved, I guess, in the mobilisation of our Sage colleagues, and I guess what it means for us going forward. Personally, I am based in the southeast, but as many of you will know, Sage are headquartered in the North
Thanks,
East,
Rishi.
so, great to have you.
As the final panel member, for people who don't know me, I'm Sue Ormerod, Regional Director with Nigel Wright, a career technology recruiter. Have done it for more years than I can remember, and I remember green screens. Our business is typically SME, 127 staff across 9 different countries. On the 23rd of March, 50% of our vacancies in the North East went on pause. And understandably, as everyone rushed to get home. So currently, we've got half of our UK workforce working at the moment and supporting clients as they inevitably do in the north of England, just crack on and get on with doing business. So our business was founded by Nigel Wright in 1988, and long may it continue. Laura, you're back.
I am back. Thank you very much, everybody. Sorry I missed your introductions. I might have known this would happen. My internet's so poor at the moment, but hopefully I'll make it through the rest of the session. If not, as Sue said, she's on standby. She's got my questions. If anyone in the audience does have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, and we'll try and get round to them in a little bit. So I listened to the CDI session earlier about what we've learned from COVID, the dreaded C word, and I listened to Aaron Harris talking about the relationship between technology and people rapidly advancing. I guess, does this mean that actually what we've been driven to do during this time is really something positive rather than something negative? Rishi, what are your thoughts?
I would take that sentiment, Laura. I think, and for those of you who attended the mobilising a small army session just moments ago, I think upon reflection and I guess lessons learned, we've really, I guess, understood the art of the possible. Sometimes, I mean, with my IT operations hat on, I've been in incidents before, I've been in problems before, but a crisis of this nature, I think, has really changed going forward. Would change the way that we will certainly approach things to get us to the best outcome. So, being less risk averse, being bolder. We spoke a little bit about, how do we bottle up that essence of, being in a crisis? And actually, if somebody would have said to me, look, we've got 13,000 colleagues across the globe, how do we mobilize them and get them working from home and make sure that they are having the colleague experience and making sure our customers are getting the same experience? There's nothing like a crisis, I guess, that doesn't bring that together and show really what can be done if there is one common objective and goal that really brings it to the forefront of people's minds. So I think that upon reflection, with my professional hat on, it's absolutely been a good thing in terms of demonstrating the art of the possible and taking
Mark,
that essence.
Would you agree?
Of being in a crisis.
I would say. Some of the conversations we've had with our clients over the last few months have certainly changed the dynamic and how we talk about work. Definitely changed. I think, given what a lot of extraordinary people have done in and around the UK over the last few months, people are keener to get to the points quicker. And I think people want to move on with their transformation projects. They want to focus in on the right things and try to add value. So I definitely see there's been a change in terms of moving towards a more agile, trust-driven model that people operate under. But I'd say the negative side of it, because there is a negative side of it, is that the well-being or the mental health side of it needs to be carefully managed. So, we're all talking about what's been able to be done 2 years worth, the Microsoft person 2 years worth of week in 2 months. Agreed, but that will have an impact on people. People will be exhausted. And I think this next phase now, it's very important to engage with our employees to make sure that they're looked after correctly and they get a chance for a bit of downtime. Yeah,
it's a really good point, and we'll talk about well-being a little bit more in a moment. First of all, I want to talk about physical workplaces. There's been lots of talk about it kind of being the end of the office, the end of the contact centre. We've proven that we don't need them. It's not strictly true, though, is it, Guy? What is the future of physical spaces when it comes to work?
Well, I mean, a lot of the clients who we deal with are in the financial professional business services and digital technology, and they're basically looking at office space. When we're trying to attract them to the Northeast, they're looking at offices. And the first thing I'd say is that very clearly we're still getting inquiries for office space. People are still, agents are still showing clients around office space. So obviously, as more and more people are working from home, and we've proven that we can work quite efficiently, or most people can work quite efficiently, the sort of the mental health issues put to one side, people still like working in offices. So I think that the requirement for office space is still going to be there going forward. I think that what's in fact, we're getting inquiries from people who are looking for more office space, because it's what people are after now is an office space which is a bit more comfortable for people to work in, with more ability for people to social distance, more sort of communal spaces where people can have meetups. If people are working from home, they can come into the office and meet up. And so we're seeing more people asking for quality, where they may, in terms of moving into a new office, they might spend some more money on the fit out. And this is especially important because people are still going to need to attract employees into these businesses. Even though a lot of these may well be working from home, they are going to have to probably come into the office quite often. And it's a key selling message for any office or any business to have an attractive workspace to move in. So we've been getting inquiries where people, in fact, there was an inquiry just before lockdown where they were looking at the sort of the out of town business parks in and around Newcastle in Sunderland. And I thought that they'd probably be attracted there because it was quite cheap space, really good quality grade A space. But they were actually, when we came out of a quality building in the centre of Newcastle, you could see the sort of the cogs moving, saying, actually, this could change the way we actually did deliver our business, having an office, a quality office in this location. They hadn't actually thought about that previously. And they thought that they'd be able to attract maybe different types of people there. They might actually be able to move some of their tech development services there rather than just a service centre. So I think it is going to change. And for the Northeast, I actually think it's going to be a real opportunity, because some of these big corporates who are diversifying their property portfolios, moving into potentially regional cities out of the Southeast and London, I think there's a major opportunity for the Northeast for sort of North Shoring activities. And so we're quite excited that, yes, the office environment will be changed and people will be working different ways, but people still want office accommodation. I think in the Northeast, we've got a fantastic array of offices, really competitively priced, but also we've got access to the skills. And just the last point is that the office costs for people in terms of their workplace are only a small proportion of the total business costs. I mean, they'll be less than 10%, less than 5% in lots of cases. And the workforce are the really, really important or the really costly things for a lot of these businesses, particularly sort of big service centres. And in the Northeast, we've got very low attrition rates, very low turnover rates, so people don't have to invest as much in training again as they attract new people. So I think that's something that a lot of people are looking at the Northeast, and we're gaining a lot of traction in terms of quality offices, great spaces, much cheaper than elsewhere, but also that low attrition rate. So I think that for the Northeast, there's some fantastic opportunities that the COVID's brought us in this sort of office environment. Yeah,
that's great to hear that there's still so many inquiries coming through, and that people are still certainly looking for spaces in the region. So I'm going to ask for your thoughts on this in just a moment. But first of all, Mark, are you seeing that your customers are planning on using their workspaces differently than they had previously?
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing a rise, like Guy was just talking about there, in the way that people want to kick their offices out. I mean, there's a lot of requirements now around some of the additional technology we're going to need to put into the offices around, thermal cameras and a whole range of different things. I think with regards to getting into the offices, one of the things that we've really struggled with in lockdown, there's lots of work that we've been able to do effectively remotely, but we really, especially the type of work that I'm involved in, a lot of the strategic, the workshop, the digital transformation engagement type sessions, they need to be physical sessions. You need to have that ability to work with people. So we're seeing more of a drive towards innovation centers, the sort of rooms where you can actually get up on your feet, start to brainstorming, because that's the one thing I think since lockdown, all of the organizations I've spoke to, that's the bit they miss, the ability to stand in a room with a flip chart, with some post-it notes, and really to brainstorm things. So I think there'll be a change in that as well.
Yeah, excellent. And so Guy talked about sort of this being important from the point of view of attraction in kind of getting the right spaces. Do you think that your clients are thinking in that way yet? Are we starting to see a change in the way that they are, I guess, writing their job adverts to attract people differently?
It's a really, really good question, Laura. And we've got a pocket of clients who are looking at their multiple shiny offices thinking, do we really need all of them? And if we do need all of them, do they all need to be configured as an office? Should we have an innovation hub or a commercial hub? Should we have a co-working hub where teams can go and work together? And then when you look at a lot of our clients, they've surveyed their workforce, as we've done with ours, and there's a lot of people who actually quite like the flexibility that working from home gives them. And rather than seeing that as a negative, I see that as a positive, because if you can attract people who want to do that and you can accommodate them both as a blend, a hybrid of being in the office but having the ability to remote work, you'll open up a pool of other candidates for you as well. So we're hearing lots of planning going on, but there is a definite need, as one of my other colleagues calls it, about sharing the air, because I don't think I know anybody who's found a collaborative whiteboard that works the same as being in the room. Nobody's found it yet. No. So if there's any developers out there, if they've got some good ideas, but there is always a lot of uncertainty about the safety of being in the room. And there's a lot of nervousness about going back.
You talked there about the hybrid model being a real opportunity for people who would struggle to always be office space. But of course, there's also the opportunity here of complete remote working for those that it works for, which kind of throws this Northeast talent pool idea out the window, because it means that suddenly we have access to people anywhere in the world, but likewise other businesses anywhere in the world have access to our talent. Is it something that we should be frightened of, or is it an opportunity that Northeast businesses should be embracing?
Personally, I think it's an opportunity. I think some folk might see it as a threat, but I think it's an opportunity because it gives us more access, certainly in some of the skills where we're short, but we've got fantastic talent in the Northeast, and hopefully that can showcase that. But, companies, the challenge I'm seeing, the questions are around, you have a business with some values and some culture and a culture. How do you transmit that? How do you onboard people and keep that culture going? Because if that's a differentiator, then you want to continue to keep that going. Yeah. But like Guy, I'm hearing that there are companies still wanting to be based here and have their hubs here. So that's a great thing to have it confirmed by Guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Rishi, you're back with us.
I am indeed. Yeah. Apologies for that. I guess I would just add to that. I think we firmly believe that the reason why we've been able to transition in the way that we are working today at Sage has actually been because of the strong relationships that we've built, during those times that we have been in the room together, in a building together. And, as we're now working remotely, those foundations are really underpinning, I think, the success that we're seeing in the way that we are operating. So that's...
Did you... At Sage, did you previously have any fully remote roles, or was everybody office based at some point?
No, we have small scale remote colleagues, and I think to Sue's point, how do you kind of emanate the culture and values that you have as an organization when a handful of colleagues are working remotely, or all colleagues are working remotely? And I guess speaking from a technology perspective, we really kind of leverage the tools that we have available to us. We have what we call Sage TV Live, where our executive team and senior leadership can regardless of where they are physically in the world, can emanate those messages, and really drive the what Sage is all about. Continuous refresh and reminders of how we're dealing with the current situation. I think that really helps in terms of colleague engagement. On top of that, some of those tools have been used for the softer engagements, making sure we've had yoga sessions, we've had people doing homeschooling for people of similar age. So I think it is about, I guess, leveraging what is available to us and making sure that regardless of whether you're at home or in the office, that you can still have those cultures and behaviours driven through. And I think hats off to our internal communications team, but it's been an immense effort and a fantastic outcome.
I need to get access to those colleagues that are doing homeschooling, please. Can we tune into that? Just on that subject, I think we've all adopted a much more flexible approach to hours of work around childcare. I don't think that there were previously many organisations that just kind of threw open the doors and said, just work whenever you can. It doesn't have to be 9 till 5. A lot of business had an element of flexibility, but perhaps not quite to the degree that we've accepted over the past 3 months. Is this a learning? Do you think it's going to change the way that we accept hours of work? What do you think at Sage, Rishi?
So I guess, to some extent, as a global organisation, we're dealing with that and have been dealing with that for some. Speaking, I guess, with my experiences of being at Sage, got two young children, and there's kind of this concept of, I guess, moving more towards asynchronous working as opposed to trying to have everybody that you absolutely need around the table at any one time for a small moment in time. And looking at, I think, some of the comments here from certainly about not having the loudest room in the voice heard all of the time. With way of working, I think what you get is there's absolutely value in opinions and ideas in diversity. So it's if you're an introvert, let's say, being able to work in a synchronous model where you perhaps you digest what's happening, you go away and you actually take the time to come back and formulate your answers, as opposed to being forced into a moment in time to make your opinions and observations heard. So I guess we at Sage have been doing that for a while because we work across geographies, and my role is a global role, so I'll be speaking to people from all regions. So we'll always deal with that kind of handover or transition based on time zones, but it's certainly added that within the time zones because of the way that people are now working. So I tend to work flexible hours, different hours today than I was doing certainly in February.
Yeah, Estelle's commented in our chat, Estelle Blanks, that she heard recover and review, which I think was actually in your earlier session, Rishi. And we need to ensure that we don't go back to the old ways for the sake of it. How can we ensure that the hybrid way of working brings a more level playing field geographically and demographically? So I think this will be something that's kind of close to your heart. Do you think that we can encourage businesses to maintain this hybrid?
I think so, and I think I've just been making some notes as people were talking, because in our HR director group that we were talking to earlier this week, Susan Fulton, and I'm sure she won't mind me quoting her, she said, while we're all in the same boat, but we're all not equal. So, you've just got to look at the screens here. We've got a bit of a dedicated working space where we can interact online and we can work online. Laura, you've got children running around, other people will have that. So I don't think we can have a strict regime of you must work from 9 till 5 anymore. All of the clients that I know have said, do what you need to do to give the outcomes we require of you. And another thing that came out of one of the discussions was that productivity is actually better than it is in the office. And is that sustainable? And I know we'll come on to talk about well-being, but I think we've got to learn how to work in this new environment as well. Dawn Dunn's just said something there about an always-on culture. So whilst hybrid is good, there is the temptation for those of us who can and want to and are engaged by it to be always on. And I think we're maybe storing up challenges for the future.
Yeah.
That has to be top down and encouraged to take a measure. So I think working hours, what are they? It's whatever you need to deliver with a bit of balance on that. And also just quickly, I think it's really important we build on the investment that our businesses have made and don't retrench back, because then that investment and time will be wasted.
Yeah. No,
because there's a lot of good coming from this. So build on it. And that's what I'm hearing from my CIOs.
There absolutely isn't, and that's a really good point. Just touching on what Estelle said there about leveling the playing field geographically, Guy, do you think that this kind of broadening of the talent pool does create an opportunity for businesses in the region?
Well, I think it does. I think it creates an opportunity, but in my world, I think it creates an opportunity to actually ensure that some of the issues that we do face, and there are sometimes we're really aware of the fact that we lose a lot of graduates down to London, for example, after they graduate. I think this gives a real opportunity to retain, some of the more talented people up in the Northeast, because they'll get that opportunity to actually work for Facebook or something like that, living in a flat in Whitley Bay, and they'll be able to go surfing in the morning, drop the kids off at the nursery and log on to work at 8 o'clock in the morning. I think that offers loads of opportunities for us up here to retain talent. Also, we talk a lot about the boomerang as people who've been living in London and the southeast and a bit of fed up with the rat race there and the commutes, and it gives a great opportunity for them to come up and work for the same company but potentially work up in the northeast. So I think it gives a lot of opportunities for us, but it is, we are now, how this is going to work through in the next 6 months, a year, when potentially, hopefully, touch wood, COVID sort of goes away and we get vaccines and everything, and whether this has a long-lasting impact. I think it personally will do, but I think for that very reason that a lot of the corporates are really looking at their property portfolios and looking to move out to the regions, and so I think it's a huge opportunity for us.
Yeah, excellent. I think everybody's touched upon it at some point there. Well-being, whether it's kind of being able to make sure that people are switching off when they're supposed to, or that they're managing with juggling suddenly being a school teacher and trying to do perhaps not even their normal job. They might have been pushed into a different role, and it's not always kind of easy to pick up on cues from your staff when we're sort of in this, we're face to face, but we're not really together in the same room. Mark, what do you think we've learned from this time of remote working about keeping our staff happy and safe?
So I'll go back to something, actually, I think Sue said it to me in the steering group a couple of weeks ago, maybe. There's a number of people within our organisation that are working in bad spaces. They're working in their kitchens, they've got their children running around in the background, and they've really struggled from a well-being perspective during this difficult time. I think one of the bits that people are missing out on is that team dynamic, just the ability to sit there and talk to people. And I think Sue introduced something to me where you could essentially have periods of the day where that person would be live, not just sitting at one camera, looking and talking to someone about a specific subject, but just having someone within the wider team live within the environment they're working in. And I think it's something that we've had a look at, and it makes a big difference. I'd say people are missing that ongoing conversations. They're just bouncing an idea off somebody else, where it's not just direct down into the camera, focused on a specific agenda for that meeting. So using technology in different ways, I think, is important. And I think we really need to start to think about how we make sure that the well-being and mental health of our staff is built into not only the technology, but the roles of all of the managerial roles that we have within our organisation.
Mm-hmm. Chris Thompson's made a point that productivity and well-being aren't mutually exclusive, and he's given an example of of a business where the staff are typically working much longer hours but taking lots of breaks throughout the day. Which I think particularly on a day like today where it's been quite intensive, you've sort of been through all of the conference and you're looking at the sunshine out of the window. It does seem like it would be nice to sort of get out every so often for 10 minutes and maybe have a run or do something with the kids. Is it realistic? Can we monitor productivity if people are working in that way? Rishi, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, yes, it's built based on trust, but I think a key word here is empathy. Mark, you referred to, I think, what Microsoft and Satya has done for Microsoft in their organization, and I think it is about empathy and people understanding, to the point that was made here in the comments. We're not all in the same boat, but we are in the same storm, and that may be, after whatever happens, with the current kind of pandemic. I think the way that we've certainly tried to build that kind of empathy or be aware of people's different situations is ensure that they don't feel like that they are alone in this. We've got colleagues that are sharing intranet stories about their particular working situations and environments, and that then allows our other colleagues that are in the same boat as them to comment, feel the same as what other people are going through, and just sharing ideas, sharing experiences from a well-being perspective. I'm currently wearing a Sage Foundation T-shirt, so this is something that it's one of my personal loves of working for Sage, which is our giving back to the community. And even during the current ways of working, previously we may have been kind of volunteering in schools or helping charitable foundations with various initiatives that would have required physical presence. What we're now doing is actually offering lots of kind of volunteer opportunities that can be virtual. And for me, in terms of my own personal well-being, there's a lot of gratitude and satisfaction that I get by doing that kind of stuff, which takes me away from my day job and gives me that kind of perhaps well-being boost that I need when I'm working remotely.
It's nice that you still afforded the time to do that, even during a time of crisis, when perhaps it is even more important. I'm just looking at the chat that's kind of still going on about this balance and what the best scenario is, and Chris has said that it is all about understanding each colleague's personal circumstances. Mark, how many thousands of people work at CGI? Is it realistic to be able to tailor it to the individual?
Yes, I wanted to come on to Chris's point because it's a really, really good point, because I'll tell you what happened. So the other day I walked downstairs straight from the study from a bad meeting and walked into the room with my children and my wife, and I was in a bad mood. And that whole concept of you usually get that drive home, that bus journey home, that train journey home, to essentially get work out of your system. And I think we do miss that at the moment. It's a really, really good point that, there is you can get away from work sometimes, the home environment, and you have that chance to transition from one into the other. So, like you said, there's 6,000 people working within CGI. And I think one of the other questions is around large businesses moving towards more local offices. From a CGI perspective, that's something we're already doing up in and around the north over the last few years, and something we're continuing to do this year in and around the north. Clearly, we're not opening an office right now, but I definitely think I've spoke to people in other large organisations. Accenture were on a call the other day and said a similar thing, and I think more and more large companies are definitely going to be doing that.
Yeah, I need to speak to you, Mark, about that. I don't think. I think one of my observations on this is that I've really struggled with working at home. I've always hated working at home, and with my wife going to the NHS, I've had the 3 kids. And I've got a bit of a Protestant work ethic, so I found it really difficult because I know I should be spending time with the kids doing schooling and everything. But when I do that, I'm thinking, well, I should be working, and vice versa. When I'm not working, I think I should be spending more time with the kids. And so as a good parent, I put in a recurring appointment at lunchtime to sort of go running or do exercise with the kids. And I think I've been doing it for 3 weeks, and I think I've managed it twice. Yeah. So it's just not really that easy. And another thing is, I said at the beginning, there's only 4 of us in our team, and because what we do, we're on the phone a lot talking to clients. and we can hear what each other are saying. So we understand, and we can sort of say at the end, oh, you did realise that X has happened rather than Y. And, well, you just can't do that online. It's impossible to do that. And we've got a new starter, Rachel Burgess, who was on one of the sessions earlier. And the second time I met Rachel after the interview was to drop off a laptop and a phone in a plastic bag on a doorstep, and then retreat 2 meters and have a sort of an hour's induction. And I haven't met her since then, and she's been working for us for nearly 3 months. It's not the way you'd want to induct somebody into the organisation and welcome them to the team. I mean, you can do it to a certain degree on Zoom and Teams, whatever, but it's really not ideal. So I think that personally, I can't wait to get back to the office, and whatever technology solutions there are to make this sort of working better in terms of mental health and getting ideas over and everything. Yeah, bring it on. But at the moment, it's not really working for me. I noticed somebody made a comment about, I think Charles Sellers, about travel. And I think that's one thing that's really going to change. I was going down to London the whole time, meeting with clients and everything. And that's just not going to happen now, because it's not cost effective. I was talking to a solicitor in a large law firm in Newcastle a few weeks ago, and he said that two partners would go down to London to interview somebody for an important post. And they did that during lockdown. They did it on a Zoom, and he said it was just as effective. They didn't spend a whole day going down to London and coming back and having sort of an hour interview. It's not a useful way of working. I think that's going to have a huge impact on what people do and how people work. Certainly my work.
Guy, you've very seamlessly moved me on to my next question, which was going to be, have your customers changed the way that they want to interact with you? And will this change last, or will we revert to type? And I think you've just you've answered that already. Rishi, what about your clients? Are they interacting with Sage differently? Has much changed?
So we've seen a shift in ways that customers are interacting with us. For example, through our contact center, or through some of the live Q&As that we run, which is effectively like a one-to-many type support model. But I think fundamentally the principle's the same. It's how do customers get the answer to their queries, the questions and support they need in a way that they need it and when they need it. So I guess what we have seen is, because if you might be running a small business and you need an answer at a time that suits you, we recently launched a new knowledge based platform. It's got some self-service in there, so I guess it's shifting a little bit away from always having somebody potentially at the end of the phone. Having said that, with my IT operational hat on, during a time of I think there is that, given the infancy and the maturity and how long we've been operating like this, there will be that revert to type. Can I pick up the phone and speak to somebody to get an answer? And maybe that will shift over time. And as part of our digital strategy, that will accommodate, I guess, more channels that suits different people given their situation in different ways.
Yeah, I think that the more channels thing is really key there, and I think the businesses that have been able to quickly implement tech to kind of pick up the lower level inquiries have, I don't want to say sailed through this, but certainly kind of managed to get through this more seamlessly. Mark, do you think that this is going to accelerate the adoption of tech in many businesses, in particular automation?
Yeah, so we've seen it. We had the session on the service delivery cluster the other week around how a lot of our clients have been standing up things like digital contact centers, AI-driven chatbots, moving through to intelligent automation, RPA. The projects that would have probably taken 6 to 12 months last year, there has been proof of concepts up and running within weeks. And now people are starting to engage in the longer term strategies around how they do this. And I know that there was some conversations in our presentation earlier about, the risk of, is this losing people's jobs? Are we taking it away from what people are doing? And I think that it's really, really important around that question to make sure what we do is engage with the workforce in the right way at the beginning and start to find the value jobs that those staff do. It's all about engagement and getting the top-down buy-in, but absolutely technology is going to start to accelerate now in terms of we've seen what's possible in a very short period of time.
Yeah, I'm pleased you mentioned jobs. Sue, I'd like to know what your thoughts are on robots taking jobs and people being replaced with machines. What can we do to support businesses to upskill their staff?
And I think that's the key word, upskill. So in businesses, change is inevitable. If you want to survive, you've got to innovate, you've got to be brave. And I think what this situation has shown a lot of the business leaders that I know is that their people are very resilient, they're very innovative. You know, we're all solving our own tech problems without IS coming running, because they're not just around the corner and they're not on the end of the phone because they're busy. And I think it has shown people how confident they can be with regards to the automation piece. It's interesting because the paper heavy companies where they can automate and put bots in to do, I mean, we've got a bot on our website that answers questions, you know, which vacancies this, etc. Most companies have that now. And I think it's not a generation thing, and I'm not going to go into the generation conversation, but we are all becoming more used to having things online, doing things online, and not bothering if it's a real person. If it answers the question, it doesn't matter if you get the right answer. So with regards to the workforce, how will that change? Gosh, haven't got a crystal ball. I wish I did. But what I can see from an interviewing perspective, telephone interviews have gone. They've gone to first stage video like this. Companies and people are more happy with it. And we're seeing it accelerate the process. There's more touch points because you have got to meet people at some point. But I can see it being a bit more slick going forward because we've had to do it. We're used to it. And we're getting on with it. Will robots take over? I'd like to think they would take over in a good way, especially in maybe health or isolation. Japan's doing some great stuff on companions. I don't know, who knows? I'm not qualified to talk about it. I'm just a very, very enthusiastic, curious research person.
So I've had a message to say we've just got a couple of minutes left. So I think final question is, what's going to be the most fundamental change to the way that your business operates going forward? Sue, is an awful lot going to change about the way Nigel Wright operates?
Less travel, probably, internationally, and clients, definitely less travel. There's some interesting stats from North Tyneside that were discussed on the Dynamo advisory board. 160,000 less miles that their patients have travelled since this started. I think we have to embrace that, certainly in some areas, yeah, and that will affect climate.
Yeah.
So let's see.
Yeah. Mark, what about CGI?
Following on from what Sue said, and you know the stuff that we're doing around the Northumbria Water Innovation Festival, I think the net zero, the climate change agenda has to be a huge part. I mean, we've all seen the impact that it's had during lockdown, you know, the drop in travel and pollution, cars on the road and planes in the air, and I think we need to build that into what we do going forward. What will it change from a CGI perspective other than net zero? You know, a lot of that stuff that we talked about, the technology side of it, we're already doing. I think it's just the definitions of what is a working day. It's everything's going to move to more outcome driven, I think. So well-being, outcome driven responses, and the climate change agenda, I would say, are the big changes for us.
Yeah, well, we think we've lost Rishi. Guy, you've already mentioned a lot less travel for you. Do you think that's going to be the biggest change?
Probably a lot less travel to see clients in the early stage of us trying to sell the region. But of course, to be successful, we need to get the clients to come up and visit the region, and that's the bit we love when we're showcasing what a fantastic place the Northeast is. So that element will continue. was just laughing earlier because I thought we'd just got rid of HS2, but I think it's having a resurgence now on the chat. But that's a whole totally different story. But yes, a lot less travel.
Could you see a future where you're using VR to showcase the region to potential customers?
Yes, but people won't sign leases or make investment decisions without seeing the place, and so they'll still need to come here in the early stages. And at the moment, we're thinking about we are potentially using VR, and there's a lot of the premises and R&D facilities and universities already have VR and other digital resources which we can use at the moment. But I don't think that it will change to that completely now. People like to see what they're buying.
Well, I think when you're spending that amount of money, then it's natural to want to see it. Yes, Sue, go on.
Can I just say, Laura, there's some clients are doing VR of their offices so that they can show new appointees what their offices look like, and they're doing FaceTime around offices and manufacturing sites. I mean, Sage did it with the 365 of their offices, and it's a very highly viewed video, and I'm seeing other clients doing the same.
Excellent. I'm really pleased that we've kind of finished on the topic of climate change. It gives me an opportunity to plug an accelerator that I'm working on with the Innovation Super Network. So we're actually, I have to say this really carefully, or it sounds like we're accelerating climate change. It's a climate change innovation accelerator, where we're looking at a number of things like use of public transport and last mile delivery. And I'm actually running the remote working challenge, looking at what the real problems are with continuing to work from home. And they include things like the ability to collaborate remotely. So all the details are on the Innovation Super Network website. If anybody wants to get involved in that, I might as well give it a plug while we're talking. But thanks so much for your time. For you on the panel, we've lost Rishi, but thanks to him too. Thanks to the audience for sticking with us when, quite frankly, the sun is calling. We've got about an hour left, including Don't Blame It on the Algorithm, which I'm told is highly entertaining. So please stick with us. And I hope to see you all soon. Thanks very much. Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks very much. Thank you, Laura. Thank you.
Thanks.